D1Baseball.com. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney, and we want to say thank you to our presenting sponsor, Netting Pros. Netting Pros specializes in the design, fabrication, and installation of custom netting and padding for college baseball programs all around the country. Next time your field or facility needs something new, whether that's netting, wall padding, L screens, or ball carts, make sure to check out our friends at Netting Pros. And we say this with great sincerity every time. These guys at Netting Pros are awesome. They love college baseball. They have great products, clearly, and they're just incredible people. So I want to encourage everyone to support them, and we are grateful for their support. So, gentlemen, good evening. Happy Sunday. It is year 2, show 2. And just to get anyone that hasn't tuned in before up to speed, last year we did a show called Fourth Coach Conversations, where we really featured the volunteer assistants in college baseball who are the fourth coach on the staff. It's a great way to get to know these guys. We did it all fall. It was super, super fun. And this year we put a twist on it where we wanted to just talk to any assistant coaches out there, and we wanted to be more topic driven. So tonight's topic will be running an offense, running a college baseball offense. So first, we want to start with letting these guys introduce themselves, and then I've got some questions teed up for these guys. So Coach Pooch, and we'll have each of you guys do this, just name, where you're from, where you've played, where you've coached, kind of bullet point your resume for us. So go ahead, Nick.
Great. So I'm Nick Puccio. I'm the assistant coach at Northeastern. I'm going into my 5th year now with Coach Glavin, and I'll start from the beginning. So I started my playing career at Dean College, which is a junior college in Massachusetts, transferred to Fitchburg State. I finished up there. I was on staff there for 1 year as an assistant after I graduated, and then got a job at Southeastern Iowa Community College, where I was for 1 year. Worked for Justin Schulte there, who's really just one of those guys, I think one of the best kept secrets in college baseball. Guy's won 900 games. He's had a ton of success. And I think, too, like some of the base that I learned there are some things that I still believe in heavily as a coach. I came back to the East Coast after that and hooked up at Wheaton College for Eric Podbelski, a Division III program. And again, that's another one of those guys. He built that program from the ground up. He's had a ton of success there. He's been to a number of College World Series. And between him and Justin Schulte at Southeastern Iowa, just two guys that, again, just kind of really helped start my career as a young coach. And I'm really thankful for. After 2 years at Wheaton, I then got a head coaching job at Nichols College, which was a Division III school in Massachusetts. And those were 5 great years. You know, I was a really young head coach. I think I was hired at 27 years old. And I got an opportunity to make a ton of mistakes and learn a ton and build the program from the ground up, which was a lot of fun. And and then this opportunity came at Northeastern, where, and it's funny because when the Northeastern opportunity came up, Mike Glavin and Kevin Cobb's our pitching coach. I knew them for a while. It was almost like I've been on staff for 10 years here, because I used to always work their teams. We used to always share names, recruiting guys, and really had a relationship. So I remember the day Glav called me the first about the job, and I basically accepted the job before he offered it to me. So it's a great place where I think we really love working with each other, and I think we're just scratching the surface with where we are right now.
Hey Nick, so let me ask you a follow-up question. So it sounds like you're a New Englander through and through, and like you went to the dead center of the country. Like I can't think of a more severe culture shock unless you went to like Hawaii or something. What was that like for you? Going from New England to the absolute Midwest.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, 25 years old, you kind of figure it out. It was great. Obviously, it was baseball decisions why I did it. Kind of had a mutual contact out there, and it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned so much, and again, obviously, it's a little bit different, and there are some things that I still talk about to this day about how the Midwest is a little bit different than the East Coast, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. So it was an awesome experience, and still some things I miss. Some of the convenience pizza shops / gas stations, and we have them out on the East Coast too, but just like Casey's and those types of places, that's what I remember from the Midwest.
The pizza was trash though, right?
I don't
Just
want to
kidding.
offend anybody by it.
I'm just kidding. Oh, I'm a Philadelphia native, Nick, and I tell people out here, they ask about cheesesteaks, and I just tell them, like, if it says it's a Philly cheesesteak, it's 100% not a Philly cheesesteak. If the word Philly is on the menu, you need to move on the menu. So,
Of
sorry.
course.
Yes. No, just kidding. That's awesome. I love it. Coach Fontino, go for it.
All right. I originally grew up in the Bay Area, out here in California. Played at College of Marin, a junior college up in the Bay Area. Got a chance to play for two legends, and Al Endress and Tom Arrington there. And then moved on and played my last 2 years and graduated from York College, an NAI school out in Nebraska. And then from there, I went right into coaching. I was very fortunate to end up at a good place right away at Cal Lutheran University in Southern California. After that, then I went on to UNLV to be the volunteer there. Got my first taste of Division I baseball as an assistant coach there for 3 years under Buddy Goldsmith, working with guys like Nate Yeske and Scott Malone and Mike Kirby and whatnot. And then from there, just from a responsibility standpoint, got a chance to, of course, make a little money and then get a chance to start recruiting. I moved on to Chico State, which is a Division II power. And then from there, I went to the University of Nevada for 1 year with Coach Gary Powers, and then spent 5 years with Eric Valenzuela at St. Mary's. Got a chance to coach guys like Corbin Burns and Tony Gonsolin and guys like that up at St. Mary's, and then went on to UC Santa Barbara with Andrew Checketts for 3 years. And then last season I was at USC, and then this year I'm just getting my first year here started as the assistant coach here at Cal Poly.
Oh, good stuff. So, Matt, let me start with this question. So, if I have the timing right, when you were at UCSB with Andrew Checketts, you guys kind of did a total overhaul of the offensive identity of the program, and that's after they had gone to Omaha.
Correct.
Where,
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess the thing I'm most curious about is that's pretty scary, like a program that's already, working at a really good clip, and then you guys decide to kind of go all in on something totally different. I'd love to hear, like, what was that like? Was that an easy decision for you all to come to, or was there some trepidation there?
If it could, and it's Coach Checketts, he really, between myself and Donegal Fergus, he was completely hands off, and he trusted us to do whatever he thought was best for that side of the baseball. Speaking from an offensive standpoint, Donegal and I really aligned in terms of our philosophy and what our vision for offense was, and we just kind of hit the ground running and just went for it. And fortunately, we had some good players in that program. I think we ended up with, I don't know how many draft picks that year. I think 10 draft picks that year. I think 6 of them were position players. So obviously that's a big part of it, in addition to the training stuff as well. But we just went for it. We knew in our heart of hearts that there was a certain way that we wanted to play offense, and Andrew and Checketts trusted us to do it.
That's awesome. Very cool. Coach Seeley, go for it.
All right. So started playing in Northeast Texas Community. Coach Van Horn, Coach Childress, Coach Anderson. Had the fortune of playing for those guys. And then college for Darren Clark. Then I went back to Nebraska as the volunteer assistant, coach with Andy Sawyers as well there, and Dave Bingham. And then moved Bolt, who's now the head coach at the University of Nebraska. And after coaching with Will for a year, was the volunteer assistant, and 1 year after being a volunteer assistant, and I was at Texas all seasons. Josh hired me at Oklahoma State, so this is my second season at will be.
Love it. Hey, Justin, when you were at Nebraska, so you played at Nebraska in a famous era when Dave Van Horn and Rob Childress and Mike Anderson and those guys were really transforming that program from the bottom of the Big 8, I guess, or Big 12, whatever it was, to, next thing you know, you guys are
Yep.
in Omaha a couple years, back in Omaha in 2005. Was DVH, was Coach Van Horn running the offense, or what was his involvement with the position players?
Day offensive things like all of our skill instruction was through, hitting approach was through Mike. Dave's genius is Dave is great, and Dave had a complete understanding of what Mike wanted. And when it came to game day and those principles, Dave is great at backing Mike up to the point where, I guess in the system, like everybody knew was prepared with Steele with Dave.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I like as we get in further into this, that you're the Nebraska at that time period when we talk about an offense having an identity, it was just awesome. Like just it felt so locked in, the whole thing. So yeah, really cool. Hey Justin, if you don't mind, try hanging up and dialing back in. Let's see if you get a cleaner connection when you clip back in. Coach Greeley, go for it. Matt Greeley, NJIT.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me on, Runes.
Got it.
Played at Walla Walla Community College for 2 years, and then went to University of the Cumberlands in Kentucky. I was there for a year, and then finished at the College of Idaho. And then immediately from there, went into my playing career, or went into my coaching career. Started as a grad assistant at the College of Idaho for a year. After that, I moved back to Alaska. Was getting my teaching master's and coached, was a high school head coach for 4 years at Thunder Mountain High School in Juneau, Alaska. Then started back up collegiately. I was at Everett Community College for 1 year. Went to Arizona Western College for 2 years. During that time, I started coaching in the summer for the Matsu Miners in the Alaska League as well. Then went to Coppin State University in Baltimore. I was there for 5 years, and made the change to NJIT, and am now entering year 2 with Coach McClellan.
I love it. So, Coach Greeley, I'm guessing that at some of your coaching stops, because you're going to be our George Horton tonight, where you have a pitching background, but we're going to have you talk offense. But let me rearrange my question. I feel like when you say some of those stops, you probably had to coach every position on the field, almost coach every part of the program. Is that a fair assessment?
It is. You know, what's funny is I feel like, spending your whole life dedicated to stopping offenses in some ways can really help prepare you to coach an offense. I think of the offenses I hated pitching against and hated defending the most, and those are the type of offense. That's the type of offense we're trying to create here at NJIT and just continue to foster.
Yeah, so let me finish the George Horton analogy where, George Horton was a left-handed DH in college, and then next thing you know, he's running the pitching staff for Augie Garrido, and then he becomes the head coach at Fullerton, and Dave Serrano's his pitching coach. So George is, he really cut his teeth as a coach, as a pitching coach, and then he's running the offense. And anyway, yeah, their offenses were miserable to play against Fullerton back in the day. And no, of course, it helps when Justin Turner is hitting ninth. Like that's a good start for your offense. But anyway, yes, very, very good. Yeah, those were good teams. So, hey, gentlemen, let's do this. Let's here's another question as we get into running offenses. So I want you guys to name a team that you either played for, coached against, or played against, that you feel like really shaped some of the things you think about running an offense. I'll give you guys an example. So 2000, Arizona State was I was an assistant coach on that team. We tied for the Pac-12, Pac-10 at the time championship. We were a top 8 seed, got upset in the regional. But that team, we had 2 middle of the order guys. Casey Myers was the Pac-10 player of the year. Mitch Jones hit 27 home runs that year. So those guys got all the attention. But what I think about that offense, obviously those 2 guys are amazing, but we had a leadoff hitter, Jonah Martin, who got hit by a pitch 29 times. We had Jeff Duncan hitting the 2-hole, who's now the head coach at Kent State, who ran a 6.5 60. We had a kid, Mike Lopez, and another guy, Jeff Phelps, Digger Phelps, who were hit and run like you could get them up at 5 in the morning, they could execute a hit and run. So it was just an offense that worked together. Now, of course, Casey and Mitch drew all the headlines. But that was, I never forgot that, where I felt like those other guys just kind of picked at the opponent, the pitching staff, and then Mitch and Casey ended up just with the knockout punches. So, Coach Puccio, let me start with you. Name a team, it doesn't matter what your association with that team was, but name a team that you've been part of that shaped what you think about running an offense.
Well, I mean, I think it's in particular when in 2012, I was in the Cape with Hyannis, and we coached a couple guys from Arkansas, Brian Anderson, who got to the big leagues, and Brian Spoon. And both those guys, again, super talented players, but they were also really good at the little things, right? They could do everything. And you could just see that those guys were just really well coached, and things like slash read, something that in the Cape we didn't have installed in our offense, but team would run a wheel on us and those guys would know to do it. And it was just second nature to them. They could bunt, they could drive baseballs. And, I think that a lot of those guys who are really good situationally are also your best hitters. I think it's hard to find like awesome situational hitters and guys who are really good at the little things who can't hit. I think they work hand in hand. So, I know from my standpoint, I'm always looking and we want our guys to be able to do everything because I think it all works together. I think being a good bunter makes you a good hitter. Being able to handle a bat allows you to drive baseballs better with hit and runs, slash reads, those types of things. And I think it kind of really hit me was in 2012, was 2013 with those guys and what they were able to do and how well coached they were. And Spoon and Anderson were two different players, but they were both had the abilities to do similar things. And I think it's really important when you're building an offense to be well-rounded that way.
Yep. I love that. It always makes me think of Mike Gillespie, the late Mike Gillespie. His expression was, "I want complete players. I want players for all occasions that can thrive in any type of game." So that's awesome. Coach Fontino, name a team that influenced you as someone who runs an offense.
I got three kind of references, and I'm gonna kind of like try to do it like sequentially in terms of years. First and foremost, like I'm from California, obviously, so I grew up with Pac-10 baseball, with USC baseball, with you guys at ASU, with Stanford, and all that stuff. And like your guys' teams at ASU runes were like, for some reason or another, like they've stuck with me through my whole coaching career in terms of the physicality, the like a million left-handed hitting or switch hitters. I mean, you guys would roll out like left, switch, right, left, right. I mean, it would be, and for some reason that's always stuck with me just in terms of like my vision for at least putting together a roster as a recruiter and an offensive guy. And then from there, like, as I continued with my coaching career, obviously getting to Division I baseball and being at a private school and, not quite recruiting nationally, but having certain times of the year where you're maybe going to PG National and you're seeing players from all over the country do their thing. And then, obviously competing in regionals with teams all over the country and seeing how offense is played outside of California, outside of the West Coast. We opened up in 2016 at the NC State Regional against Coastal Carolina. Of course, they won the national championship that year. And seeing that group of guys, how they played offense, how they could either hit home runs or they could steal bases or how they could base hit, bunt, and all that stuff. That definitely stuck with me as well. And then as far as the team goes, our 21 team at UC Santa Barbara, I think was probably the antithesis of all those things combined. I mean, I think we were one of two teams in the entire country to lead their conference in both stolen bases and home runs. I think Campbell was the other team that particular year. And that's hard to do. It's usually you get guys that are big and strong, they hit a bunch of home runs or are a little bit more, athletic and fast per se and don't hit for as much power. And that's really what I want from an offense is I want to be multidimensional, as you mentioned, and not just have to sit around and wait for a 3-run home run, figure out a way to get around the bases and score as many runs as you can. But also it's nice to be able to hit a bunch of homers as well.
Yeah. When you guys had that group at UCSB that was kind of run and power, but the Big West is known for a million picks. I mean, I think I could make an argument that no league controls the running game better than the Big West historically. So how did you coach through that? That, hey, like once we get this reputation, there's going to be picks.
Yeah, I just think there's so much stuff out there in terms of scouting and with synergy and things like that that you could get a better idea going into a weekend or a midweek game, what their tendencies are in terms of all that. And ultimately, they can pick as much as they want, but it's really still going to be about leg times and pop times and all that stuff, and their ability to play catch down to second base with all that stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good way to think about it. Coach Seeley. So let me repeat the question for you. So the question is, name a team that you played on, played against, coached against, any team that you think of that has shaped you as someone, the way you think about running an offense. Let me see. I can't hear you, Coach Seeley, if you're talking. See if you're unmuted. Still nothing. Hey, Justin, let's try that again. Try hanging up and jumping back in. And Coach Greeley, you take it from here.
Yeah, well, an offense that was really tough to pitch against when I was at Arizona Western was South Mountain Community College. And, it's a wood bat league down there, but it's in Arizona as well, so the ball flies. And so for those wood bat leagues, I think you have to be equipped to beat people a lot of different ways. You'll see some buzzsaw arms that you might have to win a 2-1 ball game in. You'll have some days where every pitcher's throwing right in that nitro zone and it's going to turn into a slugfest, and you'll have a lot of in between. So that was an offense to me that I thought really, embodied a lot of the winning traits that you see good teams have. When they're making outs and runners in scoring position situations, they're making the correct outs that keep the line moving. They just strung together a ton of quality at bats and really controlled the zone. And, when runners got on base, they would influence the type of pitchers that the hitters would get to hit. And those offenses are just really tough to handle.
And when your park at Arizona Western, if memory serves, do you guys have days where the ball's just jumping out of there, or what's typical for you guys that was typical at Western?
Yeah, it was a smaller yard, so the ball would jump, but then it on days it just wouldn't carry quite as well as other days. But it was one of the smaller parks in the league for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's and what's an interesting thing about the Arizona JUCO League, which is a great league, I get to coach in it too, is you'd have double headers on Tuesdays where the first game was 7 innings. And again, you're talking about wood bats, bomb bats. The second game was 9 innings. So often the first game of the doubleheader, the 7-inning game, was ace versus ace. And so like you're talking about 1-0, 2-1 games almost every week. You're also talking about an hour and 15-minute games, by the way, which was amazing. But yeah, that league is super, super fun. So Coach Seeley, I see you. So you want me to repeat the question, or you got it?
No, you're gonna have to repeat it. I've been
you got it. So you'll have good choices here, Justin.
Hook back up.
You're good. I can hear you there. So here's the question.
All right.
Name a team that you played on, played against, coached, or coached against. Name a team that really influenced you or shaped you when you think about running an offense. And the example I gave was the 2000 Arizona State team that I got to coach as part of. And, we had 2 guys in the middle of the order that were All-Americans, but the guys around them did all the other different stuff. And the 2 guys in the middle got all the hype, but I always felt like it was the other guys that had the pitcher just they chipped away at the pitcher, and those guys could land the knockout blows.
Okay, so I'm gonna pick a team, but I'm also gonna go off topic, and I'm gonna
Please.
pick one Nebraska team. If I had to pick a team, coached with Matt and at Texas A&M, my first really, I had an understanding of offense, but he changed the way I look at offense.
Matt Deggs, that is, right?
Yes, Matt Deggs. Yeah, he's a genius when it would coming like he looks at offense completely different than anybody else I'd ever seen about a situation that you do not understand. He has a clear and conscious. So I think from an outsider's perspective, it probably looks a little chaotic. It's anything to him. And I would say our 2001 Nebraska baseball team, that team probably ordered to hit 20 plus home runs. And then we had a bunch of guys up and down the lineup that all served.
That's awesome. Hey, Justin, had you, when you were at Nebraska in 01 and 02, had you even met Matt Deggs yet, or Matt Deggs had not been part of your life yet?
College third base box while I was at Northeast Texas playing. So yes, I had already seen Point, but for those of you that don't know, and I think most people probably do if you pay it, the offense that Matt runs is called the pack. And Matt was already starting with the same A&M in 2008 is when he did that, and I was right at the beginning. So I would I was at the front of all of that. So I have a real good understanding of what he was trying to accomplish.
Got it.
So
Yeah. So you got to. I didn't put two and two together. So you got to coach against him, which is awesome. So that I'll bring up Coach Deggs, now the head coach at Louisiana Lafayette. He's unbelievable. So excellent. All right, boys, let's go around the horn again. Coach Puccio, I'm going to come back to you. Here's the question I got for you. Here, I'm gonna give you. So there's a person named Sarah Lang. She's one of the preeminent stats and researchers at ESPN. She just announced on Twitter the other day she actually was diagnosed with ALS, and so at ESPN she is one of the most popular people there. And so I doubt Sarah Langs will ever hear this podcast, but if she does, obviously we were thinking of her and praying for her. And I heard her on a podcast with Buster Olney and Carl Ravitch recently, and so she is like a stats and ink guru, and she loves baseball. Just a really, really neat person. So when there's a theme out there that, hey, playoff baseball in the major leagues is more about small ball than it is about power, and she's got data that contradicts that. And so I'm going to give you guys the data, and I want to talk about it. So the data is this: in 2021, in the playoffs, in the major league playoffs, 2021, last year, teams that out-homered their opponent went 25-2. So last year's playoffs, teams that out-homered their opponents went 25-2. Now this year it's changed a little bit. It's those teams that out-homered their opponents are 11-5. But 21-2 is pretty, 25-2, I'm sorry, is pretty compelling. Now I'm struggling with that, and data can get a little wonky, right? Like data points can be a little oversimplistic. And, the way I would receive that is I'd say, okay, I guess that I need to teach my hitters to just try and drop bombs. And, that means we're just going to try and catch balls out front and snap, pull side fly balls. And that's a whole can of worms, especially with the type of pitching you're facing in the playoffs. So I struggle with that, but the data is the data. So, Coach Puccio, let me start with you. You can agree with some of that, dispute that. Why there is no right or wrong answer here. But how do you receive that data point? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say this, right? Like we talk a lot about the game within the game, right? And again, go by the naked eye, and you watch the postseason right now, and you see guys who are just competing really well in the box, right? They're taking what they get, from a situational standpoint, runners on third base, moving runners, being really tough with two strikes, some ugly swings, just that find a way, right? Well, I think that as hitters in the box and as an offense, and we talk about it a lot, it's just like when you have that one pitch mentality and you're going one-on-one with a pitcher, I think it leads to pitchers giving in, and at the end of the day, it's if you can do that one piece of winning pitches, of extending at bats, of taking uncomfortable swings, making it really hard on them, I think the extra base hits and balls that leave the yard come, right? So I do think that those things matter. And it goes back to like getting runners on base and making pitchers have to control the running game. And it does matter in the postseason, right? And I think that the game gets a little fast for pitchers when that does matter, and you're seeing stolen bases happen. And it's making them have to separate two different jobs. They got to execute a pitch and they got to hold a runner. And it's allowing a hitter to get a better pitch to hit. So I do think it works hand in hand, right? And I think that obviously big innings are really important, and you see the big inning numbers in college baseball, but that process that leads to a big inning isn't just the result of the 3 spot, right? It's everything it takes to get there. And I think you see that a lot in the playoffs. You're seeing guys at the highest level piece at bats together, pitch to pitch, ultra competitive, and they're winning the battle, and then they can string it together for 4, 5, 6 at bats. And that's where those extra base hits and home runs can lead from, right? So I think it's that game within the game that leads to the big result.
Yep. Yeah, that's good stuff. I'm not going to steer the jury. Coach Fontino, take it from there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I think that there's I don't know if misconception is the right thing. So there's different ways you can look at, playing for just trying to hit home runs. Obviously, that's the quickest way to score a run. That's simple baseball. But I think that at least from my perspective, yes, I want guys that hit home runs. I want to be at or near the top of the conference every year in home runs and all that stuff. But at the same time, that's not at the expense of not being a good hitter and not being able to hit singles. If again, matchups matter. Same thing in Major League Baseball. Who are you facing? The ballpark factor, the weather, of course, this time of year, especially back east and whatnot, can play into that stuff as well. But yeah, I want guys that can hit home runs and all that stuff, but not at the expense of their ability to be a good hitter and all that stuff. So I think, much like to Nick's point there, the stuff that goes into ultimately a 3-run inning or multi-run inning that where you do get a home run and all that stuff, that's gonna obviously some other things that need to happen in order to get guys on base. And I'd be curious to know, and even deeper part of that stat, what went into those, how many of those innings were multi-run innings, multi-run home runs instead of solo home runs and all that stuff as well. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I think about when it comes to the home run part of it and the important, and ultimately it's offense. The game of the game is score as many runs as you can, and whether it be by hitting 3-run home runs and then hitting some singles and a double to score a couple runs, obviously all that stuff adds up as well.
Yep. Coach Greeley, I have a follow-up question that I might ask all of you guys, but Coach Greeley, go ahead. How do you digest that data point?
Well, it kind of goes against what I would think it would be, but I think when you look into it, I think a lot of those hitters just do a unique job of being able to be on the same plane as the baseball, swing at strikes, and be on time more often. And when you do that, I think you just have some adjustability in your swing, which will lead to a ton of success. I mean, for me, if an offense stays dedicated to scoring runs, and that is their primary focus, you're going to win more games. You're going to have a record like this lopsided one here. But I think, when a hitter's able to really commit to an advanced approach and stay in the middle of the field, a lot of those home runs that you watch, they're on mishit baseballs. They're not on that ball that's just perfectly squared up at that perfect angle that you like. Some of those are mishit baseballs that they're running out of the yard.
Yeah, and some of these dudes are monsters too. So, hey, let me expound on this theme that, when I think about playoff baseball, I think about, for us in college baseball, hey, Willie Bloomquist of Arizona State said this on a podcast we had recently where he said, hey, it's 56 playoff games in college baseball. And this is a guy that played in the big leagues for 14 years. And I believe that in my heart of hearts. But, there are playoff games within our playoff games, right? Like, for those of us that play in conferences where it may be a one bid league, the conference tournament that's playoffs, times 10. And then there's the NCAA tournament and super regionals and Omaha and all those different types of things. So Coach Puccio, let me start with you. So does your approach, do I have to have a different approach if I'm facing just like a bona fide ace, like I'm going to see at the end of the year? Or do I have to have do I run my offense a little bit differently if I'm in a conference tournament where everything's so compact? Or do you not believe, is it more that you have to just keep doing your thing?
Well, I think that's why you got to do it all year too, right? Like, I think if you're going to ask your team to do something come tournament time that's any bit different from what you did during the year, good luck. Where it's the highest, it's the highest stress levels. It's more difficult to execute, right? And if you haven't had opportunities to do that during the season, then you're not going to be successful in those biggest spots. You can't expect a kid to get a bunt down for the first time in game 59 or 60 who hasn't done it all year, right? You can't expect to hit and run in a spot with a kid that hasn't had to do that. And I just think it's important, like, I believe in running a multiple offense and doing a lot of different things. Well, we better be able to do that throughout the year. And yes, you have to attack pitchers differently, right? But I think that's something that you talk about throughout the year of how you attack certain guys. And none of that really changes once you get to the tournament, right? And again, you have to, the things that you want to be and the things that you're going to have to do to win a championship have to be things that are instilled in your program in the fall and instilled in your offense in the fall. And you have to do it all the way through, or you're not going to be able to do it. And I think a little bit of it is like your offense does mold to its identity throughout the year. And maybe years we feel like we're going to have to do some different gadget things that maybe we didn't have to, or vice versa. But if you instill that stuff on day one, it allows you to have that option to do some different things and find ways to scrap runs across time or game 35, right? Like you have to have that ability to do that regardless, and not think your guys can get that, they'll execute those types of things in later in the year when they haven't done it all year.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Hey, Justin Seeley, let me insert you in here, and I'm going to repeat the question. So Sarah Langs, who's one of the really prominent stats and info people at ESPN, she has a stat that 25-2 last year was the record of MLB teams when they out-homered their opponent in the playoffs. This year it's 11-5. It's not as pronounced. So for me, I'm struggling with that stat, but it's very compelling data in a lot of ways. So I'm just curious, your thoughts on that stat. Like, how do you receive that? How do you take that as far as, the out-homering of your opponent kind of goes contrary to maybe what we would believe?
Number that she got, was it just a 21?
So 25-2 was what the record was in 2021. This year, so far in the playoffs, the teams that have out-homered their opponents are 11-5. So it's not as crazy as it was last year, but still overall, it's a pretty loud data point.
Yeah, home runs are getting around that. I mean, it just sets a bet minimum one run just from if you're just doing the math, or one run, more run.
Oh, we lost them. Oh, dang it. Stillwater, come on now. Stillwater internet killing us. So so Matt Fontino, I'm gonna change the question a little bit. I'm gonna fast forward to a question that I had in my back pocket, and I think you're the perfect person to start us with this. So what you guys did at UCSB was very unique. To lead a conference in home runs and stolen bases almost feels not possible with 11.7 scholarships. I think we all almost feel like we got to pick a lane. So here's my question: when you think about running an offense, building an offense, if you had to boil it down to 3 bullet points, like I want my offense to do X, Y, and Z, how would you break it down in 3 bullet points?
Are you talking about physical skill or like anything?
You go anything. Yeah, like so
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch you play for a weekend. I'm gonna watch your offense for a weekend. What are the 3 things I'm gonna take away if you get to have your way?
I mean, like again, like it's not like a skill or a tool, but like for me, like mentality with the group it has to be there. And mentality is a lot of things. It's the competitiveness, it's the toughness that obviously carries into their approach at the plate and as a base runner. Their ability to be relentless, regardless of whatever the scoreboard says or whatever inning it might be. That's the foundation for everything. Because I thoroughly believe that you could have elite athletes, you can have great swing mechanics and all that stuff, but if the mentality's not right, you'll have some success, but it's not going to be consistent. So that's without a doubt one thing that really matters to me. I think that the right level of athleticism and physicality, I think, has to matter. And I think with that, you see whether it be foot speed, bat speed, and all that stuff, I think kind of blend in for the last 2 for me. And then, I think probably the last thing that you won't see, but, more behind the scenes thing is like what you ultimately see in terms of the final, the final package on the field on a game day and all that stuff is purely the result of everything we've done in practice, taking advantage of every second that the NCAA gives us in terms of our training and our practice periods and what we do with the challenging stuff that we do on a daily basis in our offensive training stuff.
Yeah. With those offenses, Matt, so let me ask you a 2-part follow-up question. So you guys were so good at stealing bags, and almost 1 through 9, you can leave the yard in a swing. Does that make you running that offense? Does that make you feel like, hey, I want to tread really lightly on other things like bunt for a hit, sack bunt, slash, hit and run, because we've got 2 really dangerous things that we can bring to the party, and I don't want to dilute them with all this other stuff? Or do you feel like, hey, I just want a complete offense and let's see how it sorts itself out?
Yeah, I want a complete offense, but only based off of the 9 guys that are in there. So like if I have a guy who can run and can do maybe one type of bunt, but can also really hit for home runs, like that's the only thing I'm asking him to do. I'm not going to have him all of a sudden try to slash in game 40 or something like that. When I know that that's not one of his strong suits. It doesn't mean we don't practice it. We don't go over it and all that stuff as a group, but I also know that, hey, in this situation, me asking him to do this isn't the best thing for our group today at this moment. So I'm not going to have him do that. So I try to really understand what their strengths are. Obviously matchups matter, who we're facing and the situation and all that stuff. And then based off of that, just try to let them go. And the hard part, and as all you guys know, is, we're coaching 18 to 22-year-olds and all that stuff, is the hard part is like how much trust we have in our guys to go do it. Right. Like, it's easy to sit there and try to be a little bit overbearing at times, but ultimately you really have to trust your guys in whatever situation it might be, because of what you've done in the past and who you have for them to go out there and perform. It may not happen for that particular time, but you're hoping that happens more often than not.
Yep. Love that. Coach Greeley, you take this anywhere you want, but 3 things that you want your offense to be able to do, or, if I watch your offense, 3 things you want me to take away from watching them perform.
Yeah, I think first thing would be just to force the pitcher to take on all 9 of us. A lot of these hitters are coming from a showcase environment, and they're not used to working together as an offense and being a cog in that offense. So, working together as an offense to grind that pitcher out of the game, I think is, something that's incredibly important. On that same note, forcing the pitcher to adjust to us as well. Most pitchers, I don't think, are equipped to get you out 3 or 4 different ways. They have 1 to 2 ways to get you out. And if you can force them to do something that they're not comfortable with, I think you have a huge edge as an offense and can really do a lot of damage. The other one would be, just the ability to stay present. I think it's really easy to carry one pitch where you look bad into the next one, and it dilutes your ability to compete. So just the ability to take a breath and stay present pitch to pitch, I think gives you the best chance to get that done.
Do you feel like, Matt, like when you say that first part, that really resonates with me that if you're going to beat a really good pitcher, you can't wait until the third or fourth inning and feel him out, especially in 2022. Like, we kind of know who these people are. And if this guy for 3 months has been dotting the 4 spot, like he's just been commanding fastball down and away, like it feels like I'm offering my opinion now. It feels like a mistake to just wait until the 4th inning to see if he's got it that day. I almost want to say, like, hey, fastball down the way is our fastball down the middle today. Is it from because you've kind of lived on both sides of this fence. Is that the pitch that most often in college we got to take away from somebody, or you think that's oversimplifying it?
I mean, yeah, I would say so. I mean, most pitchers, that pitch away from hitters' power fields, and most guys don't hit the ball to the backside as hard as they do to the pull side. So, yeah, I would say that's probably the most common attack plan for guys is just attack away and force the hitters to make an adjustment. So if you can cover that, I mean, there's not that many pitchers in college baseball that will get you out, in and out, up and down, and front and back. They usually can do one. Maybe they're working on a second one of those.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I haven't been in the dugout in a few years, but I always love it when the opposing pitcher throws one fastball in, and that hitter comes back to the dugout with the announcement, "Oh, he's pounding me in." And you're looking at that person like, "Don't spread that poison in this dugout." And it was one
and
pitch.
in reality, he just missed in.
Yeah, that's right. He sprayed it in accident. Yeah. Oh, well said, Coach Fontino. Oh, good. Hey, boys, let's do this. We kind of touched on it earlier, but I want you guys we talked about a team that's influenced you. I want to unpack a person that's influenced you. And Justin Seeley, he had the technical issues, so we'll get Justin. Justin's awesome. Has had a great career. We'll get him on one of the future Sunday shows. But I'm going to unpack what he said. Matt Deggs, the 2014 Lafayette Raging Cajuns, one of my favorite offenses of all time. It felt like all 9 guys were 5'10", 195-pound former high school running backs who bunted for a hit, left the yard, hit doubles, and stole bags. Like, it was just so difficult to defend. And I'll tell you, just a West Coast influence, I'm going to say the name Wally Kincaid, because he was kind of like the godfather of West Coast offense, where you would play a Cal State Fullerton and they swang wildly first pitch. They would bunt for a hit with 1 strike, and then the 2-strike approach was magnificent. And then at second base, they would torture your pitcher with the threat of stealing third base. So those are coaches that influence me. Coach Puccio, let me start with you. I'm looking for a name of someone that's influenced the way you look at running an offense, and what about that person was the influence?
I got 2 really. I mean, the first I already mentioned earlier was just Justin Schulte at Southeastern Iowa. It was that 1 through 9 type mindset where we had a bunch of guys who ended up moving on and being Division I players, and we had some guys who moved on and played professional baseball. And again, it was guys who could leave the yard, and they were freaking uber athletic and could bunt base hit. And if you were playing them back with 1 strike and the third baseman's back, we would take the run. We talk about competing there. Also, just the whole focus on 2-strike hitting. And I just think it's so important in college baseball. And we had a really strong emphasis on it at Southeastern Iowa. And we talked about hitting in a certain average with 2 strikes. And it's something that I take with me to today with our guys, and what we talk about. Just, hey, we want to be, we set the number somewhere around like 190 with 2 strikes, and we judge that off of, usually it's like the top 10 offenses in the country that year. And it can range from 190 to 230. And, it's the emphasis on that and what it takes, and not just a physical adjustment, but the mental adjustment and being a competitor and finding a way to win pitches and extend at bats. And then the other side was Eric Podolsky at Wheaton College, where it was just that, again, that mindset of, it doesn't matter how you get it done. It's about who you got, right? And it's about stringing at bats together 1 through 9 and winning baseball games and scoring runs, right? And that's what it comes down to. And again, year to year, and I can sit here and say what I think our offense is going to be this year. It could be completely different in 8 months from now. But it's kind of having that ability to evolve, right? But at the end of the day, getting your guys to buy into, we're just finding ways to score runs and all those little things that go into it. You get talented players who can drive baseballs and leave the yard. We have guys that can steal bases, and how all of that molds together for the end game, which is winning baseball games and scoring runs, is what you're trying to get your guys to buy into.
Love it. Coach Fontino, so a coach or some coaches that have influenced the way you look at running an offense, and what about them did that?
I mean, I've been fortunate enough to work for some incredible guys throughout my coaching career. So I'll kind of group them all together in terms of their effect on me in terms of my vision for offense. But the one that's the most important for me, and this might sound sentimental or whatever, but it's the reality, and that's my dad. My dad is a baseball guy. He coached me growing up. He was always around. He was always a resource for me. He's still a resource for me. He's a guy that I can call if I have something on my mind, and I know I'm going to get an impartial, great opinion on his, and also get the honest truth. If it's something that I need to hear. But he instilled the passion of this game in me, my curiosity for how to continue to improve as a baseball player, and then now as a baseball coach. But there's no question that person would be my dad. But just kind of getting back to the other group of guys that I've been fortunate to work with, and including the incredible boss I have right now, and Larry Lee here at Cal Poly. They've each and every guy is given me something that's been a huge part of me and my offensive philosophy.
Let me ask you a follow-up question, Matt. So I remember coaching against you guys at UNLV under Buddy Goldsmith, certainly watching you guys. And then I think about Larry. Like, I think Buddy and you guys were just excellent at coaching hitters to hit. I don't recall the UNLV offenses being super fancy, or it was just really good hitters 1 through 9. And then I that's how I think of Larry Lee, is just this guy can really coach a hitter to hit the baseball. What are similar about the way Buddy and Larry coach hitters, and what's different?
I think, obviously that was more at the beginning of my coaching career, and I was a lot younger. And but the UNLV guys, it was, I wouldn't, basic is not a bad term. Basic is a term of, a positive term in terms of like, hey, we're going to be great at these 3 or 4 or 5 things from an offensive standpoint, and this is how we're going to hit, and this is what we're going to do. It's not going to be a broad spectrum of things that we're going to try to do offensively. Coach Lee, I think, on the other side, he's obviously been doing it for 40 plus years. For 20 here at Cal Poly. He's got obviously an incredible background to be able to teach all different types of offense, in terms of whether it be just flat out being able to hit this type of pitch or this type of pitcher, but also being able to teach guys to be able to do everything else as well.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Coach Greeley, what say you?
Well, I've been really lucky just with some of the other assistants that I've got to work with, that have just been able to debate and talk offense versus defense and just how that works. I mean, a couple that stand out to me, a couple when I was at Everett Community College, Cody Atkinson, who's now a hitting coordinator for the Texas Rangers, I believe, Kurt Nelson as well from there, and then Dan Padilla down at South, who I got to coach with for a summer. And I think all of them, some similar traits. I mean, very rhythm based and very individual to the hitter.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly not cookie cutter with what they're doing, which I think just helps make a really dynamic offense. One that's equipped to beat you a lot of different ways. One that can beat you on Friday night when you got a close game. One that can beat you when the wind is blowing out. One that can beat you when the wind is blowing in. And it's just adjustable, and they aren't afraid to adjust when the game calls for it.
Yep, I love it. All right, boys, this is an unfair question that we're going to wrap up on. We'll just do lightning round, really quick answer. So you guys have all done a really good job talking about how the whole thing works together, but we all have favorite plays, right? We have favorite buttons to push. So you're only going to, I want to know your favorite button to push in an offense. Stolen base, 3-0 green light, just swing away. hit and run, whatever it is. You can only I'm making you pick your favorite child right now, which I know is unfair. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go Slash. I love Slash. I'm sorry. I'm unapologetic. I'm a Slash apologist. Get the defense vulnerable. So many kids have a better swing in Slash than they do with their just normal come out of their shoe swing. So yeah, give me, if I'm only allowed one play, give me Slash. Coach Pooch, what are you thinking?
I'm a sucker for a stolen base.
Second or third?
Oh, I mean, third's easier to steal, but there's an art to stealing second that when guys have it down, it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I love the stolen base too. I'm with you. Coach Fontino.
I'm going to go 2. I'm going to go suicide squeeze and then stealing home.
Oh, suicide squeeze. I thought
Yeah.
people had retired that play. I struggle with safety
I like
squeeze
it.
because I feel like I'm with you. I think safety squeeze is a very underrated. I think the difficulty of the base running play on safety squeeze is that's a hard base running play, I think. Whereas suicide squeeze, we're just be aggressive and figure it out. Oh, I loved it. I love that answer.
Yeah.
Coach Greeley, what are you thinking?
I got 2 as well. One would be a play you'd put on. The second one is very dependent on the runners on base. But for me, the run and hit would be my favorite.
Oh, I like that.
The run and hit, and then if the situation calls for it, I love when the bases are loaded and you're able to advance all runners on a tag.
Oh, like all 3 runners tag up.
I'll tag.
All 3 runners tag
Yes.
and advance.
Oh gosh. Now that you talk about having a pitcher have a meltdown, that will do it. That is great. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, very cool. So, gentlemen, this I say this every week, but we've been on the call for just about 56 minutes, and it absolutely flew by. I really appreciate this. We could go for another 2 hours, and as I told the group last week, I may buy each of you a beverage at the convention at the ABCA, and we can continue this conversation. I enjoy this so much. I love talking baseball, but I love talking offense, if I'm being really, really honest. So really appreciate your time. I want to say thanks again to our friends at Netting Pros. These guys are awesome. We're genuinely honored that they've chosen to sponsor the show. But I think it speaks volumes about who they are. They love the game. And so again, want to encourage everyone to support the guys at Netting Pros and say thank you to them. That is it for tonight. We'll be back next Sunday night. We're going to keep going different topics. You'll see us promoting it on Twitter throughout the fall. And that is it. Everyone have a great week, and we will catch you next Sunday night. Take care.